let's go to our first speaker. Crystal, can you say hello?
Sure. Hello there.
Well, Crystal, thank you so much for being with us today. So, as you pull up your slides, can you give us a self introduction?
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and pull up my slides, but while I do that, yeah, my name is Crystal Gans. I moved to Nashville. Well, I split my time between Nashville and Fort Lauderdale, but I was born and raised in Fort Lauderdale, and I fell in love with Nashville in 2019. Came into town for a Dave Matthews Band concert, and one of my friends from LA had just bought a house there with her husband, who's a musician. And so she had been really encouraging me to visit Nashville. And we all know what happened in 2020. And she was one of the many people from LA that relocated. And then a bunch of us just kind of fell suit. So really love Nashville. Yeah, I'm a VP of Business Development for iHeartMedia. And I also consult some artists on the side because that is also a huge passion of mine. So with that, I'll go ahead and hopefully share my screen. 1 second. Let's try this one. And please, let's see if this works.
That looks great. Take it away.
Okay, perfect. All right, so building a personal brand. So one thing that I really will start with this slide is let me tell you a little bit about this cover photo, if you will. I absolutely love and hate this photo for many reasons, but I feel it's a good place to start when we're talking about building a personal brand. This photo on the cover page was a turning point for me, both personally and professionally. It was February of 2020. I think we all know what was right around the corner. I was unhappy in my career. It was with a great company, but it was a role that I had outgrown and some changes that were really just no longer a fit for my personal requirements. We'll talk about that on a panel later. But I'm really super uncomfortable in front of a camera. I had never had a photo shoot before. I had just started working with a life coach because I knew I had to get out of my comfort zone to level up where I wanted to be. I knew I had a great reputation in the industry, but I didn't actually know that deep down within myself. There was a lot of inner work that still had to be done, and this photo was taken right before that work was starting. So when I see something like this, I see, wow, man, if I knew then what I know now, and at the same time, I'm super proud of this woman and who she became, because at that moment I was really unhappy, faking the smile, and that'll kind of segue perfectly into a couple things that I'll talk about. This is really me forcing myself to be it until you are it. And I'll just jump right in. So when we talk about brand, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. That quote can be really scary, but accurate. And the balance in life is deciding when you want that you want a positive, genuine brand, that everybody's saying the same great things about you, that you leave a legacy, but you've also got to let go of caring too much about what others think. So it's a delicate balance. Harvard Business. So what is a personal brand? Harvard Business Review defines personal branding as an intentional strategic practice in which you define and express your own value proposition. At the end of the day, and if as you get to know me, and anybody who meets me knows that I will say no matter what industry you're in, even though I've been in media and in sales for 17 years, which is crazy, everyone is a brand and everyone is in sales. Whether professionally or personally, our success often depends upon persuading others to recognize our value and believe in something that we are passionate about. We're all in sales, no matter what we're doing in our position, whether we're applying for a job, securing a promotion, leading a team, dating, starting your own business, building relationships. Our personal brand impacts all of it. And, I know the word sales oftentimes comes with a negative connotation, but at the end of the day, we're all selling something. We're all selling something that we're passionate about or that we believe in, whether that's a product that we actually do sell, or just, we really want somebody to believe in a common passion of ours, a cause, a fundraiser, you name it. We're really all in sales. I said this a second ago, but I used to say early in my career, fake it until you make it. This is something that a mentor of mine had told me when I was 23 entering this industry. And really, I've adopted or evolved that to be it until you are it. I'm not going to take credit for that. I don't know exactly who is quoted to be the first one to say that, but I'm sure you've seen that elsewhere. Be it until you are it is a powerful statement. When you start acting in a way that, you know, you might not deep down believe that you deserve to be whatever you aspire to be, or the, you know, the best at what you do, or the leader or the CEO or the founder of a company. But when you start making that mental adjustment that, you know, act as if you're already there, and it's only a matter of time before the universe presents itself, and be it until you are it. So building that personal brand. We'll talk a little bit about defining your purpose, writing a personal brand statement, self-assessment. I'm big on that. Knowing your strengths, values, unique qualities. You know, sometimes you think about SWOTs, right? The strengths, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I hate the word weaknesses, but self-assessment. Embody your brand, communicate your brand story with consistency, network and build relationships, and being authentic and transparent. So defining your purpose. This, to me, was the absolute hardest thing. Some people know their purpose from a really young age, and then sometimes we lose sight of it. Sometimes we always know it, and sometimes we find ourselves in our 30s or 40s or 50s and still not knowing exactly what our purpose is, and it's never too late. So some prompts that can help define your purpose. What are your favorite hobbies and why? What are you most grateful for? I'm not going to read every single thing on here, but you know, what does living your truth mean to you? When do you feel most like your authentic self? Taking money out of the equation, because I think that many of us understandably make the mistake of, you know, or financially being in a situation where we have to sacrifice something for the money. But at what are we sacrificing and at what cost? So if you take money out of the equation, what would your dream career be? What would you be doing? And how can you help bridge that gap between what you're currently doing and what you would be doing, but in developing your purpose? The image to the right is from the Simon Sinek book that at this point, I can't recall how old this book is now, but I still think that there's a lot of value in start with why. And when at the core, you're really starting with why you're doing what you're doing, everything else kind of falls into place. Because at the end of the day, most of us, no matter what industry we're in, we're probably all doing a lot of the same things, but our whys are all different. So starting with why will help you define your purpose when you identify what that why is. And some of these prompts I love that helped me kind of get back to what my why was or is. Writing a personal brand statement. So having a personal brand statement makes it easy for anyone to identify if they want to work with you or learn more about what you represent. It can help you build trust, stand out from others in your field. It's our mission statement, right? So much like every actual company and brand needs a mission statement and a brand and guidelines, so do we at a personal level. So short, 1 to 3 sentences, catchy, compelling. Think of it as your slogan for marketing yourself. I put a few examples there that I liked that I had found, but you know, everything from short to a little lengthier, but I love each one of these. I transform accomplished women from unknown to unforgettable with a strategic, trustworthy personal brand. This Alicia Sky, mindfulness leader and educational video producer. I mentor high achievers to fully live in their purpose without burnout or self-judgment through mindful business coaching and done-for-you video production. And then I love some of the personalization in this last one too. I'm the Mary Poppins of customer experience, right? I fly in, find the true problems, improve everything I can, make the magic happen, sing a few songs, and fly away to the next project, or you can stick around. I'm dedicated to transforming companies, departments, teams, projects, products, services, etc. Your personal brand can really weave all of it together to, you know, some people can tend to keep it more, I'd say more professional, because we should always bring a bit of personal into the professional. But some people are just, you know, let me keep it just black and white to the point of, you know, this is what I do. And some people like to weave in a little bit of that fun and personalization to bring out their personality in their statement. Assessing your personal brands. This goes back to that self-awareness piece. Self-awareness is key in understanding yourself and how you show up. I'm a big fan of personality assessments. If you've ever taken the DISC or heard of the Berkman method, Myers-Briggs, there's also some free variations. The one on the right that shows the Oracle is actually from a free brain assessment quiz on projectevo.org. It was some journal from like a Kickstart. It's actually a very cool journal. I have no affiliation with it, but the quiz was really, really accurate. So that self-awareness, it really makes an impact when you realize, okay, you know what are my superpowers, right? Soar with your strengths. And in the case of, I fit into this quote unquote oracle, I'm really able to fill many different roles, seeing what's not being said, very perceptive, seeing all the ways a situation could play out, solving unusual, novel problems, a vivid imagination, but then also knowing, as much as I don't like the word weakness, but knowing those potential opportunities in areas where, being aware of it, but not harping on it and focusing on it. Because I think a lot of our mistake in life tend to be, ooh, I'm so bad. It's so easy to focus on what we're not good at and beat ourselves up over it versus, you know what? Let me acknowledge that is not my strong suit, and let me soar where I am strong, and let me find a workaround over here. So with that, one thing that I really recognized from the beginning is, struggling to start when the outcome is uncertain. And when I know that I can sometimes struggle around like that analysis paralysis and not having that clarity, I will do everything in my power to make sure that I have the utmost clarity up front before I jump in. So conducting an audit of your personal brand message amongst your friends, coworkers, bosses, family, truth tellers that you trust will give you objective feedback. I love this exercise, going to people in your trusted circle, friends, family, coworkers, etc. Which adjectives or phrases do you associate with me professionally and personally? The picture here is actually from an exercise, a leadership conference that I was at a few years ago with my former employer. But an exercise that I loved is we all got handed a blank sheet of paper, and we all wrote our I am, and the goal was to pick 1, 2, some people put a lot more words, but 1 or 2 words, starting with yourself. So, in the beginning, I put, my name is Crystal, I am intuition. And then we handed it to the person on our right and went around the table. What was so great about getting that piece of paper back for everybody in the room was seeing the consistencies that there were. All of a sudden, you can almost think of a word cloud, right? That certain words came out and said, wow, okay. And does that align with your own self-assessment of, does that resonate with you and what who you aspire your personal brand to be? Embody your brand. Be aware of the messages you are sending in every social interaction, from casual conversations to job interviews, social media. We're always advertising ourselves and moving ourselves closer to or further from our ideal. When I was not as happy in a previous position, I had the self-awareness to know what my triggers were, and thank goodness I did, because those moments were the times where, as a people leader, it's easy to let that stress show and to not show the best version of yourself, and being aware of when those triggers might come up and knowing that, when I was at that point where I might come across really negative, stressed out, or put out not the most positive energy, that was my cue to, I need to get up. I need to go to Starbucks. I need to close my door. I'm better off, as much as I'm big on open door policy, right? I know that I'm going to do more harm than good right now if I'm in this mindset. So again, back to self-awareness. Be genuine, but also be aware of how you're responding to stress and showing up. If you find yourself around negative energy, what can you do to influence positive change? One example I kind of love about this is be really cautious when somebody asks you, especially if you've never met them before, how are you? Or how's your day going? And the second we start responding with oh, it's so stressful, it's immediately can come across as a turnoff and negativity versus, maybe still being genuine and honest if you're going through something challenging, but how do you put for your own mindset too, how do you put a positive spin on it? Or what is the positive thing that could potentially come out from that learning experience? And I know I'm being vague on depending on what's going on. One thing, the picture that you see here is we were going through a heck of a lot of change management at my previous company. There was a change in leadership, there was private equity ownership, there was a lot going on, and the atmosphere the tension was palpable. You could really just sense that there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of heavy lifting that leadership had to do to really bring us back to being happy in the workplace. And so little things, how do you embody, if you want to be known for being that inspiring people leader and inspiring change and positivity, this was in the women's restroom. This was a couple Post-its. I, took what, $5, $10, went to Michael's or whatever, Office Depot, whatever it was, grabbed a bunch of Post-its, some markers, put it in the women's restroom, started with one Post-it, how I choose to feel is how I am, which is a Pearl Jam quote. We'll get to that later. And it took off like wildfire. So there is actually a bunch of photos in my phone from when it started at one Post-it to beyond this photo where it was the entire mirror. And it was just little things that were able to brighten people's day. Communicating your brand story with consistency. Conveying your brand to others can feel really uncomfortable at first, but let go of the fear of bragging or self-promoting. And I used to struggle with that a lot. Lean into the confidence that you have built about knowing what makes you valuable. Because once you really define your purpose and then, really act on it consistently, and you become more comfortable in that space and realize, oh, okay, it's a thin line, but it's not bragging when you're just confident, when you just know what you're good at and also know what you're not. Sharing your passions on social media, whether personal or professional. Oftentimes the lines will blur and you'll realize you find a happy medium where some of your best clients, in my case, came into my life because of a shared personal interest. Support like-minded leaders, share quotes that resonate with your brand message on social media or LinkedIn, raise funds for causes that you believe in. One of my favorite quotes is actually Conan O'Brien, and it's really simple. If you work really hard and you're kind, amazing things will happen. And just holding to that belief that everything else will fall into place. The image you see here, and this kind of took me aback on International Women's Day, but this is me and my best friend Alicia. We go to a lot of Pearl Jam concerts. That is a personal passion of mine. Fun fact, I actually had a manager a while ago that told me to stop posting about Pearl Jam on social media because people might not think I'm so professional. And that really took me aback. And I realized, it took me some years, but I realized, wow, that was a really silly thing, because we should not be afraid to be and show our personal lives and our passions. And when you look back and realize, I kind of cited it in the slide as well, but there's a number of clients that spend millions of dollars at iHeart and at my previous company that have followed me from my previous company to iHeart. And a lot of that started with a shared passion around, we found out that they also loved Pearl Jam, or they also loved Dave Matthews Band, or whichever music or artist that they were passionate about, or sports team, right? We're all human. We all connect over something. And that typically relationship is going to go a lot further, regardless of what industry you're in. So the image that you see here was me and my best friend Alicia at a Pearl Jam concert. This post was actually from a professional nature photographer that I would never have met in a million years, but happened to be sitting next to us at a Pearl Jam concert. Fast forward, we've always just kept in touch on social media. We're always, again, like-minded people, right? We're always encouraging each other, supporting our work, running ideas past each other. And on International Women's Day, he puts this beautiful post acknowledging a bunch of women in his life. And this is somebody we met at a Pearl Jam concert not even a year ago. And there's stories like this all the time. Actually, I think my next slide probably has another one of them. Yes. So networking and building relationships. I spent half of my life extremely shy and insecure. I used to have crippling stage fright. One day in my early 20s, I lost a friendly bet at a sports bar. I had to sing karaoke with a live band on a stage in front of 200 people. I met the love of my life that night. This was a while ago, but we're still together. I met the love of my life that night, all because I stepped out of my comfort zone. And keep stepping out of your comfort zone. I am the first one that, I see all the memes about excuses to get out of things. And I know that I need time to social recharge. I actually am an introvert, even though I can show up as an extrovert. So sometimes it takes a lot of pushing myself to, man, I don't really want to go to that networking event, but okay, I got to do it. And every single time it pays off. And every single time I look back and go, thank God I pushed myself to do that thing. This is one of them, right? So speak on panels, attend networking events, sign up for webinars, attend industry showcases, introduce yourself to strangers everywhere. which used to be, I would never in a million years think that I would be the person doing that, but now I am. Mingle at social clubs like Soho House, surround yourself with like-minded people, join Facebook groups, LinkedIn communities, etc. I was on a shuttle bus from, again, this is Pearl Jam related, but that's okay. I was on a shuttle bus from a music festival in California. Pearl Jam had just finished performing, and I was seated next to someone I had never met before. We started talking. Old Crystal would have put in my headphones, zoned out, and just gone to the hotel. That brand statement came out for each of us, right? Hi, how are you? Who are you? What do you do? Right? You have to have your elevator pitch. Turns out he's the COO of a major media network. We've become close friends and trusted business partners, and we've helped each other succeed on numerous occasions. We met about 2 years ago, and I cannot tell you how much success for both of us have come out of that, just striking up a conversation with a stranger on a shuttle bus after a music festival. So network and build relationships everywhere that you go. And that's the perfect segue to be open to everything. When you show up as your true, authentic self, the universe will provide. With that, that's really all I have. Shelley, I'm not sure if I toss it to, or Ginger, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I toss it to you for any Q&A.
Yes, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. And it's just a reminder, if anybody would like to ask a live question, you can unmute yourself, and we can raise your hand, and then I can unmute you. So yes, so please keep those questions coming. So our first question, you kind of just talked about it, but I'm gonna say it again. Kaori says, I am also an introvert that is just loud, and people think I'm an extrovert. How do you convince yourself to network when you want to stay in or go back to the hotel room?
Oh man, I usually, my first call is typically my boyfriend or my best friend, and that's my trusted circle to vent, right? Because you also have to have the trusted circle that it's human nature to still have those like negative thoughts or negative moments. Of course, we can't be like super cheery all the time. So my first call is usually to them to tell them all the reasons why I don't want to go. I don't want to go to this. I'm so tired. I've done so many things this week, or, I have this huge presentation or whatever due tomorrow. And I usually will find myself when I talk through it, either they will be the sounding board and remind me of, yeah, but remember that last time that you, like, a lot of times they'll story tell back to me, hey, remember that time you got on the shuttle bus and you met Chuck? And I'm like, oh, you're right, I should go. Every time I go, it winds up being a positive. And there are also the times where you do truly need to check in with yourself. And I'll be the first to say, if I have a week where I've done 4 or 5 social events, there are certainly times that I will say I need to tap out and I need a night to myself. And my mental health outlet is I'll play video games, or I'm a really big dork. You'll probably get to know me, but find your outlet, because that's important too.
All right, well, let's go to our next question from Lisa. And Lisa says, how have you learned to be authentic with coworkers? And she says, for example, I'm afraid to tell someone I'm going to a concert of my favorite band at Bridgestone on a Tuesday because people might not think I'm committed to work on Wednesday.
Check in with yourself. This is maybe a loaded statement, but check in with yourself that you're at the right place and on the right team. And the only reason I say that is because of my personal experience. The example I gave of I was so afraid of, because my boss was so afraid of the perception that other people in the company might think if I was out partying on a weekday night at a concert, and that I wasn't taking it so professional. And this is, it's an unfortunate thing to highlight, but I'll share it because I think that it'll resonate with some people if we've ever been in this position. But that person actually said, well, you give the perception that you're always on vacation. I go, well, I beg you to look at my PTO, because I promise you I've probably taken the least amount of PTO out of all of your other leaders, which was true. And the reason I say that is because I personally don't have kids, but this person is coming from a place that I know that he would not have said anything. And if I was at a kid's soccer practice, right? I'm not comparing the two, but it was that might not have been the best approach. And to really just let people live authentically. So I would say, just kind of a twofold. I wouldn't be afraid to do the things that you love, because eventually everybody else will also see that ultimately it's making you happier. And that work-life balance is really important.
Well, thank you so much. Well, I think we have time for one more question. And before I ask you for final thoughts. So this question comes from Kayla, and she says, is there a personal brand that's not dependent on social media?
Yeah. I mean, I think your personal brand, to me, as much as social media is a huge part of our lives, but to me, your biggest personal brand is that word of mouth. So like when you're going out there and how do you show up in person, that's gone further than any kind of social media for me personally. I used to be much, much more active on my personal social media with professional, quotes, and a lot of the things I talked about today, I'm probably not as active on social as I used to be, but that's also because I'm making more time to do things like this, to step out of my comfort zone and go to events in person and to get out and meet people. So I would say that the personal brand is more so dependent on how you're present with people. And that's gone a really long way. The amount of referrals I get just from people that I've met in passing because something I must have said resonated with them has really gone further for me personally.
Well, thank you so much. Well, everyone, Crystal, as well, I'm going to ask you for final thoughts before we move to our first panel. And everyone, Crystal is going to join us again for another panel today. So, any final words of wisdom on this topic or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, I'll be the first to say my game changer was kind of the way that I started, right? I knew I had a positive reputation, but I didn't know it deep down. So for me, that game changer was getting a life coach. Some people you might not need a life coach, but for me, that truly was a game changer for me. So a business coach or a life coach, or I think we'll talk about on the panel too, but certain books and getting a mentor, finding a mentor either in your industry or somebody that you look up to. And it doesn't even have to be somebody that you know or at your company. Sometimes you might find somebody that's really motivational to you on LinkedIn, and you'd be surprised that you reach out and they're like, yeah, I'd love to talk to you. And you've never met them before, but they, like-minded people, again, want to be around other people that are trying to, up level or improve themselves.
Well, thank you so much for that. We really appreciate your time this afternoon.
Absolutely.